Okay, good afternoon. Selamat sore. I live in Singapore and I worked in Malaysia, and so we're always selamat datang, and I have to adjust, or selamat petang, so I have to adjust. Okay, I'm going to talk about current trends in academic publishing, and there's a lot going on. Let me start with some information about what's been happening over the past 20 years, and it's very interesting. This table shows the number of publications. This is citable publications, which means material in Scopus. And the figures are a bit funny because Scopus now has more journals in it than it did 20 years ago. So this is not a sort of absolute figure about the increase, but it shows you something very significant. So if you look at the figure for 1996, Asia lagged behind the US and behind Western Europe. If you look on the lines down below, you'll see around 2006, the publications from Asia, this is all fields, pulled ahead of the publications from the United States. And around 2012, they pulled ahead of the publications from Western Europe. And this trend is just continuing. So the figures for 2017, publications from Asia are approaching 1 million. Publications from the United States, about 550,000. Western Europe is kind of keeping pace, close to 900,000. But there is a lot of significant work coming out of Asia. If you look, though, at this one, you'll see that, first of all, Indonesia has made very significant progress over the 20 years between 1996 and 2016, but it's still much lower output than from Japan, India, and certainly China. I mean, a lot of the increase in publishing from Asia comes from China. And in the social sciences and humanities, it's very sad, especially the arts and humanities. So there is a ways to go. But on the other hand, you look down below, it says Indonesia is 11th among Asian countries for overall academic publishing, both in 1996 and in 2015. So it's not really a dismal situation, it just gives you a lot of scope, something to aim for. And as I understand it, the universities are encouraging you to aim very high. And that's really what our workshop here was about, is trying to help people get into good publications. Okay, this table shows the number of citations per document. So over on the far right side, the figure in red is for 2016, the figure in black is for 2015. And one citation per document is really very good. I don't know what happened for Singapore. They jumped from less than 1 to more than 1.5 in 1 year. So when that happens, usually it means there was a few articles that got an awful lot of citations. It doesn't necessarily mean across the board. And you'll see then the Philippines, almost 1 citation per article. Indonesia, about 1 citation for every 2 articles. So again, you see a situation where there's progress being made. There's certainly need for more attention to be given to articles by Indonesian scholars. Okay, I'm going to talk about a series of issues. Finances, I'm going to talk about academic journals, digital publishing, open access, citation indexes, and then a little bit about new directions in academic publishing. Maybe by way of introduction, I should say something about my background and why I'm the one up here talking to you about this. I was an academic doing research myself for about 25 years. publishing my own articles or getting my articles rejected. Everyone gets rejected, so and you feel depressed, and the only way to deal with that is you get really angry, put it aside, go off and do something interesting for a day or so. Stop being so angry, go look at it again, and say, okay, now what happened and what do I do about it? So I did that. I also edited the Journal of Southeast Asian Studies. And I saw a lot of manuscripts come in, some accepted, some rejected. I handled the refereeing process for all of that. And then I stepped down from that and I joined NUS Press, at that time Singapore University Press. So I became a publisher. And as a publisher, I was also editing manuscripts, getting people to read them and send reports. And you begin to see what makes a good manuscript and what goes wrong with a bad manuscript. And so I've done this from the standpoint of an author, from the standpoint of a journal editor, and from the standpoint of a publisher. So what I'm giving you now is coming out of all that background. So first of all, finances. Academic publishing is a very strange business because on the one side, it's about academics, it's about scholarship. And everybody knows, every one of you, if you're in academics, you must know you're not going to make any money. You're going to be poor. But you're going to be doing something worthwhile. It'll be worthy, and ideally you'll feel satisfaction from that. And get enough money that you can live. On the other side, though, publishing is a manufacturing business. We are manufacturing books. We're producing a product. Just like somebody who is producing light bulbs or any other product. And we have an inventory. We have to store that inventory. We have to dispose of it. So it's merging two things that don't really merge very well. And it's a doubly peculiar thing because of the way scholarship works. Because normally, if you produce something, you make money from the product. But you are producing academic work, and you're not making money from that. You're handing it over to a publisher, and the publisher's not usually paying you anything for that. Maybe a very small royalty. Consumers usually decide whether they're going to buy something or not, depending on how expensive it is. But in the academic world, the libraries buy things, and you as a consumer don't care about the price because it's free. You go to the library, and you use it. So the librarians, of course, care about price, but you don't care. So you're not getting paid for what you do, and you're not paying for what you use. Very strange business, that is. Okay, so point I just made. So university presses exist to publish material that is not going to make much money. At least that was the original idea. That publishing decisions at a university press have to be made on academic grounds, not commercial grounds. In other words, when we look at a manuscript, our first question is not how many copies does it sell. Our first question is this valuable scholarship? If this was a commercial press, it wouldn't be that way. The first question would be, who's going to buy it? How many thousands and thousands of copies can we sell? For us, 500 copies is pretty good. So if you have been looking in the airport and you see, here's a bestseller, it sold 50 million copies. I can tell you that's not a university press book. University presses generally lose money on monographs. And any business that loses money has to find a way to make it up. So how do university presses do that? Well, first of all, publishing journals. Some presses will sell services. They'll distribute for other presses. Some have endowment income. The university has set up an endowment, it earns interest, and you get money from that. Some universities give direct support, and some rely on donations. But fundamentally, university presses are lucky if they break even. So we're virtuous, but not profitable. Now, historically, research findings were cheap. University presses published books and didn't charge very much for them. I've just been in the process of reducing my personal library. And so I've been looking at the prices I paid for books. And, 30, 40 years ago, books were so cheap. Even allowing for the fact that there's been inflation, the currency is not worth the same thing, but they were really cheap. And people in my generation would go out, they would build personal libraries. Not too many people do that anymore. But what happened is that toward the end of the 20th century, European media conglomerates, and a lot of these started off as small presses, and then they would buy up another press, and then they would get bought up by something bigger. And so these are huge operations now. They entered academic publishing, and they started acquiring science journals, technology journals, STM, medicine, engineering, mathematics. And they raised the prices. They pushed the prices to extraordinary levels. So the top journals in some scientific fields will cost the library around $25,000 or $30,000 US per year per subscription. That's a huge amount of money. And the publishers are making huge amounts of money. Scholarly books produced by the commercial academic presses. And okay, we'll name names. Routledge, Springer, Brill. The prices of the books that they publish are $150 to $200 US per copy. I can't buy that. And no other individual scholar is likely to buy it either. So they are targeting university libraries. And the idea of the library is, if the library pays $150 per copy and 10 people use it, they've actually paid $15 for each time it gets used. And so that's supposed to be all right. I think Karen will tell you that the library still is going to have to pay a large amount of money for the book. And that hurts the university library budget. They have small print runs, 200 or 300 copies. And I have had people come to me and say, I published my book. I had no idea it was going to be so expensive. I want to give some to my friends or my parents to show that all this was worthwhile. And I can't afford to buy it. So they're selling mainly to university libraries, and individuals really can't afford these things. Commercial academic publishing is relatively minor in North America, but it is a very big thing in Europe. So Elsevier, Springer, Taylor & Francis, Macmillan, and Brill are all European-based, but they're big international companies. They have offices around the world. Commercial academic publishing is important in Japan, it's important in Indonesia, it's important in India. Not just these companies, but others as well, but they're publishing academic work as commercial presses. In China, all academic presses, whether they're university presses, provincial presses, and others, are commercial, and they're all government-owned. Okay, let's talk about academic journals. This, for a lot of you, this is the target of your writing. You're writing articles probably more than books, at least if it's in English. It's enough trouble to write an article in English. If you're trying to write a book, it's a big job. So historically, journals were produced by universities, by scholarly societies, by academic institutes. But many are now handled by publishers on behalf of societies. The societies retain editorial control. Carol mentioned the Journal of the Malaysian branch of the Royal Asiatic Society, which I happen to edit. And that journal is still basically a society journal. The Journal of Asian Studies was produced by the Society. It's now handled by Cambridge University Press on behalf of the association. Journal of Southeast Asian Studies is editorially handled by the History Department at the National University of Singapore, but it's then handed over to Cambridge, and they publish the journal, they distribute the journal. And the critical thing about all this is that they're able to put it online. They have the distribution of an electronic version. The prices of journals are controlled by the publishers. This is very clear in the contracts because the publishers say, well, if we let the academics price it, they'll price it so low we're going to lose money. We can't lose money. And even the not so expensive journals can be quite profitable. In the case of Jumbras, we have an online edition of the Malaysian Branch Journal. The money that comes in is not a lot, but it is enough to support the society. Without the journal income, the Malaysian branch of the Royal Asiatic Society would have no income. So premier journals. In the citation indexes, you have journals that get high impact factors. And universities are always telling people that this is true across all of East and Southeast Asia. I've given talks, I've talked to academics. Everybody is being sent toward the same journals. One nice thing about Indonesia is that you're being asked mostly to produce in an international journal, but they're not saying you have to get the top of the citation index. Those journals, Journal of Asian Studies, for example, they receive hundreds of manuscripts a year. And they reject more than 90% of the submissions. The Journal of Asian Studies gets 400 manuscripts per year. And they will accept about 25 of them. I've been giving this sort of talk quite a while, and when I get to this point, people say, "You're so depressing." And I'm sorry I am, but it is a fact. And in a way, this is telling you that probably this is not the kind of journal you want to publish in. Because, well, one or two things may happen. You may send an article in, 3 days later they send you a note, it's rejected. That means it wasn't refereed, they looked at it, they said, this is not right for us. If it is going to go for referees, it could take 2 or 3 years to get through the refereeing process, the revision process, and then finally get published. In the premier journals, in fact any journal, authors receive no payment. And the reviewers, the referees, also receive no payment. So one reason a lot of articles are not refereed is that it would waste the time. I mean, just consider, you've got 400 articles, and articles usually are refereed twice, 2 people. So that's 800 reviews. And you're going to throw away 700 of those reviews. You don't have that many referees out there, and they're going to get awfully tired of wasting their time. So the first thing that's going to happen is that an editor is going to try to reject the articles and only send the ones for a review that look like they have a good chance. And as I said before, the profits for these journals are shared by the publisher and the originating body. How many academic journals are there in Asia? This is an astonishing number. I did a count. There are approximately 40,000 scholarly journals published in East and Southeast Asia. Most of these journals are in Asian languages. In East Asia, most of them are behind paywalls. Most of them are in university libraries. They're purchased through big agencies that may supply hundreds of journals. In Southeast Asia, a lot of the journals are open access, which is very good. You can get at them without worrying about it. Just to give you a rough idea of how many journals are coming out of various universities. Universitas Indonesia seems to have around 30, and I could be off a little bit of these figures, but Gajah Mada has 51. It's a lot of journals, a lot of writing. Now, let me talk about citation indexes. This is where the impact factors come from. A citation index will record when articles in one journal are cited in another journal. And then with that information, you can calculate a journal impact factor. The most common one is the citations of articles over the past 2 years. And it's a very simple calculation. You take the number of citations and the number of articles. And so if every article is cited once, you have an impact factor of 1. Then there is an immediacy factor. This is where they say, in the year that an article is published, how many people cite it immediately. And in the case of the sciences, there could be quite a few, because scientists are always looking for the newest information. Okay, as a historian, I often look at articles that were published a year, 2 years, 5 years ago. It doesn't matter, it's not going to be out of date in my field. Then there's a 5-year impact factor, which is the number of citations over a 5-year period. And this is really a fascinating thing to do. Actually, you can look at how many citations after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And an article in social sciences or humanities may not have very many citations in the first 2 or 3 years. After 20 years, the number really goes up. Now, there are 2 principal citation indexes. And one is what used to be the ISI, the Institute of Scientific Information. Then it was handled by Thomson Reuters for a while, and then it's recently been taken over by Clarivate Analytics. At the moment, they have 21,878 journals. But you see the one that's labeled ESCI. That's emerging sources. That brings the number that they handle up to around the same as Scopus. Scopus covers more than 21,500 peer-reviewed journals. And about a quarter of those are material in the social sciences. In 2015, the Times Higher Education, THE, and QS, Quacquarelli Simons, they calculate university rankings, and boy, do universities want to climb in the rankings. And as of 2015, they stopped using what's now Clarivate Analytics, and they moved to Scopus, because Scopus covered more. So you can see what's happened is that Clarivate Analytics says, okay, we're losing out because we're not covering enough journals. So we create a new category of emerging sources so we can compete. Why do these people want to do this? Why do they want to calculate the number of citations? Without going into this very much, one of the big topics in the world today is big data. And these companies are in the business to collect data. Data about subject matter that is interesting to people, for example. So if you have an article in the sciences about some particular topic and it's cited a lot, that tells people that is an issue that is attracting interest. So these companies are collecting this data because they are going to make money off of it. It's not from the goodness of their hearts. It's not because they like scholarship. It's money. Okay, in Scopus, you can see the number of journals from various countries that are included. The total number of journals, this is as of a couple, 3 years ago, was 202. The total from Asia was 2,327. That is a very small proportion of the journals that are covered in Scopus. So all this data that's being collected, a lot of it, most of it, has to do with other parts of the world, not Asia and not Southeast Asia. So these measures of impact are criticized a lot. And there is a search for better measures. How would you measure impact apart from how many times an article is cited by somebody else? Well, one possibility is you can count the number of times it is viewed. Because when you go online and you look at an article, it's being counted. Every time somebody looks at it, there's a count. So you can, how many times does somebody look at it online? How many times do they download it? Okay, you can go on, look at blogs and social media, and how many times is an author or an article mentioned? How many times is an article bookmarked? How many times is it recommended to others? Now, all this is being looked at because people really feel like the existing citation indexes are producing a lot of figures, but maybe not so much useful information. So maybe there are other ways to tackle this, other ways to measure it. If you're interested in this, you can go to the website at the bottom of the page, www.altmetric.com, and there's a lot of discussion there about alternatives to the existing metrics. And one of the really extraordinary things, people my generation, and I talk to them about this sort of thing, they don't want to know. They said, oh, this is not what I'm interested in, it's not what I'm doing. I'm interested in history or societies or whatever. People of my generation mostly have tenure, they don't have to worry too much about it. People of your generation, you need to know something about this because it's going to be a key part of your careers. There are other measures that come out of this calculation as well. The H index measures the impact of individual scholars. Okay, so I've published a bunch of articles over the years. So it's possible then to look at all of the material I've published. How many times has it been downloaded? How many times has it been cited? And using that information, you could calculate my impact as an academic compared to the impact of all other academics. And that's really what the H index is about. You get assigned a number, you can be compared to other academics. In Google, there's PageRank, and that will count not just the number of links, but also the quality. So if there's a link to a high-quality site, then that counts for more than to something that's low quality. There's the eigenfactor, which is also weighting various citations. So it says, okay, some journals are more important than others. So if you get a citation in an important journal, that should count for more than one in a not so important journal. So this has all been widely criticized. And one of the reasons is you have journals with high impact factors. So let's say this journal publishes 30 articles a year. It turns out that half of those articles will probably never be cited by anyone. and a few of the others will get 1 citation. But there will be 2 or 3 articles in that journal that get lots and lots of citations. And so that's why that journal has a high impact factor. Not that everything gets cited, but they have a few important articles per year. And we've looked at this with journals that NUS Press publishes, and you can suddenly see your impact factor jump in 1 year just because 1 article is cited a lot. Okay, so that looks really good. Then the next year, you don't have an article cited that much and you drop down again, and that looks really bad. Another problem with this is that scholars will game the system. So if all of you got together, let's say one of you publishes an article, so you get all your friends together and you say, okay, I want you to cite my article, and I'll cite your article. And look at that, now you all have citations. And in the sciences that happens a lot. And you look at some scientific articles, the number of the articles, I mean, it's a short article, maybe a 5-page article, and they'll be citing 30 or 40 other people's articles. And that pushes up the impact. Also putting multiple authors on a single article. And oftentimes these citations are to articles that they haven't really used. They're just doing it to build up the citation count. In humanities and social sciences, this doesn't work so well. And citations come much more slowly than they do in the sciences. So somebody calculated something that he described as usage half-life. So you can say, if say 100 years from now, you look at a particular article, you'll say, okay, the total number of citations it got was so many, say 20. Okay, so at what point did it get half of those citations? So that would be the half-life. How long it takes to get half of the citations that it will eventually get in total. So you can calculate that. You can look at a journal and say, okay, what is the median age of articles that are cited by that journal? And like I said, citing half-life of 10 means half of the articles cited were published. If it's published in 2015, they were published in the previous 10 years. What's really interesting is this one. You always get the assumption that science journals, that they're cited very quickly, that people are really interested in that information. But if you look at this chart, in every field except health sciences, it takes 36 months, 3 years, before they start reaching half of the citations that they're going to get. So if you're having a university that says, we want to see the impact of your article, and we're going to use how many citations in 2 years, this is not doing justice to your article. The university need to wait longer to understand just how much impact an article has. But universities don't want to wait. They want to know, we're going to evaluate you this year, so we need to know how important you are, how many citations you're getting. Okay, let me talk a bit about open access. Well, open access means free. And free, boy, free is good. I mean, don't you like it? Or let's put it the other way around. Don't you hate it if you look up, you find an article, you think, oh, that's really interesting. And you click on it, and something comes up that says, if you want this article, you pay us $35 US. I'll bet it's happened to everybody. And then you have another article, and you click on it, and there it is. It's free. And you really like that article. In 2013, the United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union, and Australia announced that publicly funded research would have to be available as open access. However, it was possible to wait a while, wait a year or so, and then make it open access. So they allowed these embargoes. And the idea of this was it would protect publishers. Because if everything is free, the libraries are certainly not going to buy it. Right?
But there's no free lunch.
Well, yes, but if all journals were free, are you going to pay for a subscription?
No.
No, of course not. Why would you pay for something you get for free? Okay, so how does this all work? Well, there are two types of open access. And the first is gold. And the gold mostly is academic journals. And publishers collect article processing charges. So you pay the publisher, and then the publisher will make your article available for free. The reason it works is that the publisher's already got the money. So traditionally, the publisher sold the journal. So that's how the publisher got money. This way around, the author pays the publisher. And then the publisher has enough money, and it's paid free. Article processing charges run anywhere from $500 to $5,000 US per article. A lot of money. The amount, if you wanted to publish open access in a Routledge or Taylor and Francis journal, is $2,950 US to make your article open access. Okay, then there's green open access. Green open access usually is an institutional repository. Does anyone know, does UGM have an institutional repository? Saying yes. I was giving a talk, I won't embarrass the university by giving you the name, but I was giving a talk at a university in Malaysia, and I said to the audience, does this university have an institutional repository? And they said no. They all said no. And then somebody walked in from the library, and I said, you don't have an institutional repository? Of course we have one. Nobody knew. And this is the big problem with institutional repositories. People don't know they're around, and they don't use them very much. Authors don't pay fees. The institution will cover the costs. They will usually allow you, what you'll put into it, maybe your final manuscript, the manuscript you have worked on, you submitted for publication. But the publisher generally will not allow you to add the final version, the published version, which is the version of record. That version will have the page numbers from the journal, the layout, the copyright information, and all that. And one reason for this is the publisher wants you, if you're going to cite that article, they want you to use the real thing. They want you to use not the final manuscript, but the published version. Institutional repositories have all kinds of stuff in them. Some good, some not so good. But there's not much quality control. There are a lot of finding aids now for open access material. And these are useful to know about. So one is the directory of open access journals. And as of 2015, there were more than 10,000 journals in it. There's a registry of open access repositories. And there's a directory of open access books. One reason you should know about these is what Carol was saying earlier, that there's a lot of very questionable publications around as open access publications. If it's in one of these directories, generally it is reliable. These are, again, screened and vetted, more or less, more or less.
More or less.
It's the start. There are some very strong supporters of open access, supporters of open access initiatives. And one is SPARC, Scholarly Publishing and Academic Resources Coalition. For Asia, the main one is in Japan, SPARC Japan. But they're working to make open access viable, to make it workable. In Europe, there's OAPN, Open Access Publishing in European Networks. I'll come back to that in just a minute because there's recently been a major development in Europe. One of the things that has come along as a result of open access and digital publishing is megajournals. The first one was PLOS I, the Public Library of Science. Now this is a legitimate, respectable journal. It was established in 2006, and it publishes a huge mass of material. At the moment, they are publishing 30,000 articles per year. And what they do is they have a policy of publish first, judge later. So what they're going to do is accept any paper if the methodology is okay. They're not going to look at the data. They're just going to say, is it technically sound? Is the methodology all right? And then they'll leave it up to the readers to decide whether the information is any good. Most top-tier journals, as I said, have a rejection rate of something like 90%. The rejection rate for PLOS I is 30%. And their article processing charge is US $1,495 per article. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, 30,000 articles, $1,495 per article, and if you're reaching for your phone to calculate, I'll save you the trouble. 30,000 times $1,495 comes to $44,850,000. Now, in fact, they give discounts for various things, but if everybody paid the full price, that's what that would bring in. And it won't surprise you to learn that other publishers have noticed that. And they have created other megajournals. So one was Springer Plus, and Springer Plus is not around anymore. They decided for various reasons that it wasn't a good idea. But that's okay. Sage Open is there. Elsevier has a megajournal. So these megajournals are around. And if you have the money to spare, you're welcome to go and put an article there. Then there are the questionable open access journals, the dubious or predatory journals. And as Carol said, they look just like, they look really good on the website. The titles sound legitimate. And as she said, International Journal of, well, how about this? International Journal of Humanities and Social Sciences. And then there is International Journal of Social Sciences and Humanities. And then there's the International Review of Social Sciences and Humanities. And they claim to have high impact factors. And in fact, some of these people putting these out have created their own set of impact factors. So this is not calculated from Clarivate Analytics or from Scopus. They have created something that generates high impact factors. So you have to look to read carefully. There is no rigorous peer review, often no peer review. And they will publish if you pay the article processing charge. Now, you have to be very, very careful because journals today almost always will send you an agreement. And you sign this saying to the journal, you may publish my article. From these journals, you're going to get several pages, very, very small print. Now, whoever reads this stuff, I mean, if you have an iPhone, you have a long agreement. Did you read it? No. Okay. So people don't. And they don't with these journals. What you're signing is a contract. And in that document it says you will pay whatever the fee is. And if you don't pay it, they will send collectors after you, forcing you to pay because you've signed a contract. I will pay you X amount of money. The editorial boards, the physical locations, can be very hard to trace. One of these journals, they had a fee, but they said the editor-in-chief can waive the fee if you're from a developing country. So I started looking, I wonder who the editor-in-chief is. So I looked down, 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 down. There it is, editor-in-chief, colon, vacant. Nobody is editor-in-chief. Another one of these journals, I found the address of the editorial office. And it was a wonderful address. It's on Park Avenue in New York City. Now, this is really, really, really expensive real estate. So I did a Google search on that address. And what I found there was a photocopying service that has mailboxes. So there was nothing there except a mailbox. So if you send something there, somebody comes, opens the mailbox, and sends it off to somewhere else. A lot of these, unfortunately, I have to say, are located in Africa or South Asia. So how do you avoid predatory journals? Well, first of all, you look in the directory of open access publications. There's something now called Cable Scholarly Analytics, and they have a journal blacklist and a journal whitelist, but your library, your university has to subscribe to it or you can't see it. So the best thing for you to do is you go to the website I mentioned at the bottom, thinkchecksubmit.org. And they give you a lot of guidance to help identify legitimate and not legitimate journals. Some of the warning signs they talk about. Some journals will ask you for a publication fee. So you submit, they're going to publish in open access, then you pay a fee. But other journals say as soon as you submit something, you have to pay a fee before we even look at it. That's a warning sign. Sometimes a single publisher is offering a huge number of new journals. There was one new publisher about 4 or 5 years ago, and they opened up, and I think it was 999 new journals, maybe 99. Anyway, a lot of new journals immediately. That just doesn't happen in real life. Journal issues that do not appear on time. Websites that have a lot of ads on them, or where the English is very bad. Or if there's a title, as Carol said, that suggests that it's about one thing, but the articles are about something else. So, thinkchecksubmit.org, the questions they will ask: do you know the journal? Can you identify and contact the publisher? Is it clear about peer review? Are the articles indexed in services that you actually use? Does it say clearly what fees will be charged? And here's an important one. Some of these journals have picked up names of important scholars and they put them on the editorial board. The scholars try to get their name off and they can't. So you go to the scholar's personal website, and if he doesn't mention the journal, or she doesn't mention it, that's a sign that something funny is going on. Because if somebody is actually supporting a journal, they usually say on their website, I'm on the board of this journal. Is the publisher a recognized publisher? There's something called the Committee on Publication Ethics, and are they a member of that? And there's an Open Access Scholarly Publishers Association. Are they a member of that? So there are things you can do to look and find out whether you're dealing with a legitimate journal or one of these predatory journals. You need to pay attention to the copyright, and there are several variations of Creative Commons copyrights. One is no derivatives, and this is very much like a normal copyright. People can read it, but they have to be very careful in reusing your text. The CC BY will allow others to remix, tweak, build upon your material so long as they credit you. In humanities and social sciences, this is a terrible idea, Because my contribution as a historian is not my data. Anybody can go to the archives and find that data. My contribution is my interpretation, my explanations. And I don't want somebody changing it and then putting my name on it. Okay, finally we come to new directions. So we've got digital publication. You can do a lot, and you've undoubtedly used a lot of these things. So electronic transmission of files, print on demand. You can put color, large-scale maps. You can add audio and video to a publication. You can create live links. If you look at a lot of articles now, you go to the source, you can click on that, it will take you to the article that's being cited. You have searchable text. And you have digital archives, which will store these things long term. There are a lot of issues when digital publishing began. University administrators were questioning the quality of digital publication. The university libraries were focused on buying print copies. They had to shift over to buying digital collections. And in order to do a digital publication, you have to have a digital platform. So for digital publishing, publishers needed to develop new ways to reach their buyers, to reach libraries and so on. Well, the consequences were it gave a lot of advantages to very large publishers, and it threatens the survival of smaller university presses, and it gave rise to the open access movement. So what's happening now? Commercial publishers are handling very large collections. There's bundling in which journals are grouped for sale, and libraries are offered a big deal, so they will get the entire package that a publisher offers. And a lot of libraries are locked into these big contracts they would like to get out. And what's starting to happen right now is that big libraries and some whole countries are rejecting the big deal. I'll skip over this one, but I want to talk a little bit about that. So, back. Commercial presses right now are trying to profit from open access. And the open access movement is trying to make this inexpensive, get publishing out of the hands of these big publishers. And in Europe, they've just announced something called Plan S. I don't know why the S. Everybody says, why is it called Plan S? I don't know. But it's a fact that in Europe, a lot of the research is funded by government money. There are research councils. And under Plan S, if you have received government money and you publish, it must be open access immediately. This is going to undercut the business model of these big presses. There are ways that they'll try and get around it, but it is an effort to try to tackle this problem of the huge sums of money that are going to the big commercial presses. Okay, so just to give you the little commercial here, this presentation, this symposium this afternoon is sponsored by the American Institute for Indonesian Studies, with support from the Henry Luce Foundation, and the APHIS also gets backing from the Department of Education of the U.S., the Department of State, and the Putra Sampurna Foundation. So we're very grateful to you for coming, and just to give you this information, that's my email, and if you have any comments or questions about publishing, feel free to drop me a note. I'm associated with NUS Press at the National University of Singapore. We publish books on Southeast Asia. I'm the editor of the Journal of the Malaysian branch of the Royal Asiatic Society. It is a Scopus journal. We published on Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei, and we would publish articles on related areas, neighboring areas, if it was of interest to people in Malaysia or Singapore. So, for example, we have done material on the Riau Archipelago. We might do material on the Malay population along the east coast of Sumatra. So the fact that we specify Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei does not rule out everything on Indonesia. But if it was something on Java, and we probably wouldn't be doing it. But Javanese migration into the Malay Peninsula, yes. Okay, so thank you very much.